So welcome. Yeah, I mean, I already told a little bit about SkillsGapp, but tell a little bit about how this all started.
So a lot of us saw something before where there was a problem and we wanted to solve it. And so I had a branding and marketing firm for 20 years that we did economic development, which was how do you attract companies to a location and make sure that there are people to work at those companies. And then on the consumer side, we were working with youth brands, for-profit and non-profit, and we saw this gap where here was all this opportunity and you didn't need a 4-year degree and you could make a lot of money, and then the youth were in underserved communities, underrepresented, coming out of high school, and half of them we were losing. And so there was this gap, and we just saw the opportunity to solve it, and we exited out, and our mission is to keep it free, no barrier. And so we did a little research on gaming and thought, if we could turn this into a SaaS model and get industry to pay for it, and we would have this pool of talent untapped that they could recruit from, that we have a shot at helping to break generational poverty. And so that's our mission that we're on.
Yeah.
And we have to make money to solve it.
Exactly. So it's like turning the SaaS model a little bit on its head.
Yes.
So your journey took an interesting turn from seeking funding to opting for bootstrapping.
Yes.
Could you share why?
So yes, maybe many of you are on this pathway right now, but last year in my region, angel investors were incentivized to fund female founders to be kickbacks. So they reached out and we started discussions earlier than we should have, but what the discussions realized, we'd actually gotten to due diligence, and in that moment it was a hold up, because in those discussions we realized that we were talking with people that had a different vision than our vision. And so in that moment you felt that tension of, yes, we're teachable, and we all need to be teachable. But when you realize it's something you fully understand and have a passion about, and you feel that pressure of someone pushing a total different direction, you've got to realize that's the wrong conversation to be in. And so that was one of the reasons why we halted. And the second reason that we all have to consider is that investment we're going to be getting bringing value to us other than money? Smart money. Are they going to increase our network? Are they going to be able to connect us into areas to grow? And those are decisions we have to make. And so that's when we halted and said, we don't see that opportunity here. And so let's wait. And so we halted, changed.
So can you give an example about how different their world was, their vision was versus yours?
Yeah, so they wanted us to really focus more on colleges being our go-to, but colleges make decisions very slow. Although our talent can fill their seats, and we do sell to post-secondary to recruit our talent, they're slow, and we would not be able to scale quick enough. And so that's where we but the people that were on the venture side were post-secondary, angel, working in the post-secondary field. So you felt that we're in it, but they weren't on the recruiting side to understand how challenging that would be.
Yeah, indeed. So the people that are not only on the same wavelength with you speak the same language, but actually having experienced that problem themselves as well.
Yes, and they don't spend that. So companies, this is US dollars. Europe we're going to expand into, but they spend $50 billion a year on talent recruitment.
My
companies are. So just to even a piece of that, to go for the talent that they're not even looking at yet, would be significant. And colleges are spending a lot too to get people to fill the seat. So that's secondary.
Yeah, that's true.
Slower.
And like you say, I mean, you don't have to have all the degrees to have a fantastic job and a fantastic career.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need a 4-year for most things.
So you made a choice, put the brake, no more funding, ambitions for the time being. What have been advantages of that decision since you took that decision?
Yeah. So for all of us in that early startup, you're really trying to figure out that product market fit. You want to be able to think about your team and the growth of the team. And when you don't have that investor alongside where you're thinking about every dollar and having, you sold them on something before you took that money. Yeah. And this gave us an opportunity to really test some things without having to go back to investors and say, we've learned this and now we're going to pivot. And so it really felt free to be able to test some things with our product and with our go-to-market that I feel now we're in a different spot, and I feel comfortable and confident in what we learned during that time, which maybe that would help others too.
So what was the result of having that freedom, doing those tests, making the product better?
The outcomes?
Yeah.
So we were able to, we had some partnerships we were able to explore at that time. It gave us the freedom of being able to call large enterprises in life science, in manufacturing, and just have conversations that have led to incredible partnerships that earlier we wouldn't have done that. And our how we're selling has really gotten tight. So I feel really good about that. So we got grants and really looked at partnerships, how to scale our users, and then how to get some contracts that could help us scale more nationally.
Great advantages to have. Have there also been disadvantages? Because I can almost hear people in the audience think, okay, yeah, if you can bootstrap, of course you do it.
Yeah.
But there might be a situation, of course, where it's not like so secure.
No, every day you'll be thinking about cash flow, cash burn. That's the disadvantage. You're thinking, in your mind, you're running the numbers, the months, everything, how you got to sell something. So the disadvantage side of that is that weight that's on you every day of, we've got to make this money do the most, but then you're also trying to calculate what's next, or what do you have to close in order to stay alive.
Yeah,
thrive.
Exactly. So what does it take from you? The title is, do you have what it takes to bootstrap?
Yeah. So I would say 4 things, and there's not a right or a wrong. There's bootstrapping, VC, there's lots of options, and nothing is right or wrong, but you have to make an informed decision. And if you're uninformed, that's when it's wrong. So 4 things I would think about if you're thinking, do we keep bootstrapping? Or you're earlier and you're like, do I bootstrap or go for capital? One thing I would think about is grit. You're going to have to get up every day. If the day before was a bad day and it was all no's or disappointments, you got to get up the next day and get running and all fresh again. And you have to just be real opportunistic, looking and pushing and real creative and scrappy about ways to keep the company thriving. So check your grit. The second thing I would really look at is your bank account. You have to be honest with yourself. What's in the bank account? What do you truly believe can be signed? And if you think it's going to be 3 months, double that, just to make sure that you're really being honest in what you can do to keep the company thriving. The third thing is your risk tolerance. Yes, we're founders. We are risk tolerant, but how risk tolerant are you? And are you one that can ride right up to the line knowing that it's going to be okay, or is that going to just tear you apart? And lastly, how solid are the relationships around you? And I would say that this is almost number 1. If you're married, if you're in a relationship with your friends, are those relationships solid, and are they supporting you? Because it's going to be tough, as we all know, and there's down days and good days, and you need a support system that understands you're going to be very busy and you need positive support, but also that you need them to just call you and encourage you some days. So if there's instability in relationships, I would look at that too, because that could end up where this type of a run could destroy relationships. So you have to be really intentional on that.
Which one has been the hardest for you to nail?
It is a good question. It depends on the day. For me, I love to work, and so I have made being intentional with my friends and family. I have to put things on the calendar and commit to that and not back out, that I'm going to go to dinner with that friend and I'm bringing my daughter here to Ireland and we're going to take a couple extra days. So you want the people around you when you exit, and those are the ones that are going to celebrate. So for me, that's the one that I have to be intentional. It's the hardest for me.
So that was the hardest to commit to.
Commit.
So but if it's so hard, how do you go about it? How do you make that happen?
It really comes down to that. So with this company, I really built out what matters to me, my own personal mental health. What each week do I need to do for that? And I literally, Sunday afternoons, I go horseback riding. And I hold to that unless it's raining. And then with my family, with my husband, it's a Friday night date night. And we hold to that. And then with the kids, it really is listening. So if they're talking, I'm not looking on my phone because they know that I'm not with them. And so it's, phones down, engaged in conversation, eye contact, so that they know that is, I'm there, I'm present. So just that word intentional, I can't say it enough, that we really have to be that with our loved ones and friends.
Very good point. Now, the first point you mentioned after you ended with relationships and you put it up front, the first one was grit. How do you build that grit? What do you believe is extremely important to find that grit? So
probably all of us have started based on a passion, and so that passion drives the grit. And so every day it's okay, if one person came out of a rural area in a poverty situation and they got a job that changed their life, and for generations, that's worth it. So that grit is, I'm going to do everything that we can do so that we hit our mission. And so for me, it is that no. You get up the next day. Okay, it was just a no. Nobody died. That we can. It was a no today. Maybe in a month they'll realize that it will be a yes at that point. And so it really is fighting through and knowing that it might not be the right opportunity, and that's okay. And it might be a later opportunity, or I might need to have some mentors that can help me in some areas where I might need some training to be better at, to move it along. So just that grit of knowing when to get the help, do the work, and then show up.
Wise points, indeed. You can sometimes deal with it all by yourself. So, grit, opportunity, be opportunistic, check your bank account, cash flow and cash burn, super important, risk tolerance. Having all that in place, you're now committed to bootstrapping. What has the revenue trajectory been like? So
for us, we've done well with doing grants and looking at specific partnerships that were innovative partnerships. So they knew that we were a startup and they understand innovating and failing forward and really being a partner with us. And so very quickly, we were over $2 million in revenue without any capital infused, and to this day, none infused. And it's really been wonderful to have partners that you can go to and say, hey, we want to test this, and they want to test it with you too. And so that part has been really, really exciting. Now we're moving to, the ARR on that talent in the game and how industry really comes alongside. But it's been great to see the engagement from companies calling and understanding it. It's a little longer play, but they have to do something different. What has been most fundamental to those companies committing as well and calling you? I mean, how did you create sort of that flywheel or that magnet? The open transparency in the relationship has really been what's been helpful with clients early on. And they, making them, we're their fans because we want them to do well. We want cures for cancer. We have a life science game, and that was one of our first partnerships. And for us, it was they need talent to do more. And if we can help them by providing them that talent, that was, they want that. And then they have helped with what they want that talent to do. And so they have helped our product development of putting these things in the game, make sure that that talent is ready for them. And they weigh in on it, and they've been fantastic. So really having those few early on relationships that become your fans and you're their fans, and it really becomes fun. And there's forgiveness with those relationships when you go to them and like, hey, this isn't exactly as we expected, but this is what we're seeing and this is what we're going to do. And they're right there with you, the biggest champions.
Yeah, I mean, you fight the same cause.
Yes.
And that's, again, that's what brings the passion and the grit. So, looking back now, reflecting on what decisions you took, in hindsight, with the current knowledge that you have, with the trajectory that you created and the growth that you created so far, would you have made the same decision to bootstrap?
100%. Absolutely. If you can, with those things that we talked about, because it gave that opportunity to really know what we need for a team. Because we did those roles, and we shouldn't have done those roles, but it gave us the opportunity to learn what we truly needed, where to grow, where to put the money moving forward. And what I would do now is that I wouldn't have spent that time when we knew that that funding was going to be available. We kind of put that time in those conversations. I wish I could have that back and use that time for sales. But also it set me...
Before today.
Yeah, but it did help with like, okay, I need to make sure I really understand what it's like when you're working with investors so that those conversations are conversations from a seat of strength versus a seat of desperation. And so now I've spent the last year really focused on what do those relationships look like, what's happening at that second level of funding that you go, how do you get diluted, really knowing that every decision you make in your mind, what's happening with that decision so that it's a conversation from strength.
That's a very important one. Yeah, because then your negotiation position is completely different and everything goes different as well. So almost final question, what should founders who are contemplating with the choice between bootstrapping or funding be considering?
For me, it's scale. If that funding, if you know that you have that opportunity and funding can take you there really fast, and in the space you're in with the competition in that space, go for the funding because you can run faster. But if you know that what you've got, you can do a lot and still do it fast, and it gets you to a point where either your sales take you and you don't have to go for funding, or the sales can get you to skip around and go a little further and give more value to you. Those are the questions you need to ask. But by all means, stay alive. And so what that means, just do it from a seat of you've weighed out the options and you're making an informed decision, and it's your decision. That's what's important.
Last question then. What does the future hold for SkillsGapp as you continue your bootstrap journey?
Yeah, it's so before, like a couple months ago, it is let's keep bootstrapping and really work on some big partnerships. What's happening now is we're feeling a little of the log jam, like there's the opportunities and our team is lean and mean. And we don't get tired, but there's a lot we're doing. And so for us, it's like, okay, we're taking this quarter to really evaluate what if we go for a seed round in Q1? What would that do for us? And what type of group is the right group to achieve that? So we're looking, are we GAAP compliant? We're going through all of our accounting, getting everything ready, creating that story of what we've done while bootstrapping. It's a good story, so we need that story if we're going for funding. And then the other option is, with some of the partnerships we're in discussion with, could we pass around and go for Series A? So that is what we're weighing out right now. But like that informed, that's what we're doing this, and we have our advisors alongside of us that are looking at both pathways and which one will we go for. So by December, we'll be decision made, but we're always working on those relationships and being in the space where we can have those conversations from both the partner, enterprise and the right investors or funds that are out there that are non-dilutive that are on the same mission as us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wise advice.